Are we live? Oh, hey, all right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for Show Face to Face. Today I have Olivia Choi, who is a um, compensation planner. So it's very difficult job description to understand. I'll have her, of course, introduce herself, and she can explain a little bit more. But she's gone through her own personal journey where she's basically gone from corporate to a transformational poet, coach. Oh, Lord, life. It's okay. Not Mercury retrograde yet. Compensation planner.
Compensation analyst.
Analyst. Great. All right. Welcome, everyone, again to another episode of Show Face to Face. Today, our guest speaker is Olivia Choi. She is a compensation analyzer. It's a really complicated job description as I was trying to understand, but I'll, of course, introduce her and have her explain a little bit more, but more so her journey as how she came from corporate compensation analyst to transformational poet coach and just her journey overall. So Olivia, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angie. Hi, my name is Olivia. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I was born and raised in Connecticut. And as Angie said, I'm a senior compensation analyst. So what I do is review and redesign incentive plans for hedge funds and asset management firms. And I also am known as an Excel wizard, see the world in numbers, tell stories with numbers, build models. And I really like that part of my life. However, as she mentioned, I have transitioned into transformational poet, accountability coach, Reiki healer, tarot intuitive, and this all really began, well, I think that it's a life journey if I really think about when this started. However, I will say that I did take my corporate job because I felt like I had this pressure and expectation to go into the corporate world. I felt all this external pressure from my parents that I needed to go to a good school and then go straight to the corporate world. So I went to USC in LA, fight on, and I went to business school, and then I went straight to the corporate world where I became a compensation analyst right out of college, had a desk job. It's one of those jobs where they say it's 9 to 5, but really it's 9 to 10. It's like a 12, 13-hour workday in the busy season. I just sat there, put my head down, did the best that I could, and then a year and a half into it, I quit my job, bought a one-way ticket to Australia, and everyone was like, oh, you're never going to be able to get a job. Like, what are you doing, Olivia? You don't even have a job lined up. And I'm like, well, I have to live my life. And then I had 3 days planned, came back to the States, and was looking for a job again because it was what I was expected to do. So now I'm back at the same job that I quit, that I wasn't happy at, that I work way too long without any overtime pay whatsoever. And I just do it because of this expectation that I put on myself. Like, COVID hit, my dad, he's filing for unemployment and reaching out to me saying, Olivia, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy that I don't have to worry about you through the pandemic because you still have your stable income. And so I have all these external pressures, but who's to say that those pressures are coming externally from my father rather than internally from myself? Is it a story I'm making up? I'm still in that question, trying to explore it.
Yeah, and I hear you. I feel that this resonates with so many people. Number one, with COVID, all the uncertainty of jobs and wanting, what we call security. But also we're in conflict
what we
with
actually
what
really
we
want to
actually
do.
really
You
want to do.
mentioned certain
You
things
mentioned
about
certain
like
things about
growing up
and
growing
feeling the
up
pressure
and,
from
and
your
feeling
father,
the pressure
even
from
like
your
with the
father,
college
even
you
like
went
with
to,
the
right?
college you went to, right?
You went to USC,
You went to
great
USC,
college,
great college,
and getting this degree
and
here
getting
with
this
what you
degree
do
here with what you
in the
do
corporate world.
in the corporate
But
world.
now, again,
But
like
now,
with your internal
like with
conflict
your
of like,
internal conflict of
like what you just said, you're like, I'm unhappy. Like it doesn't, I'm not fulfilled. Yes, does our paycheck, is it worth the trade-off for our happiness? So tell me more about how you ended up, transitioning into what you now are currently getting into.
Like a vague term for a lot of people. So what that means to me is that I've now stepped into a new role where I realize that anything is possible only all the time. And I'm finally taking control of my life again in order to find out what my passion is. And I'm still trying to gain clarity on what that looks like for me. Because I'm not sure. If I'm completely honest, it's like I'm still at my corporate desk job because it's something that fills the time. However, I see so much value and so much joy in coaching, and it all started with a phone call from my cousin. So my cousin called me up. He said, "Hey Olivia, I know you just got back from traveling the world, and I just did this workshop. I think you'd really enjoy it." And he's also half Chinese. And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like I have no idea what this is, but I trust you." And he just kept going on, and I'm like, "Oh my god, like this is a sales pitch. What is happening?" And at the end he goes, "So I signed you up." And I'm like, "What? What did I just sign up for?" And then I look back on that conversation and realize that what signed me up is that I've never heard him so happy in his life. So whatever this workshop is, whatever this thing is that I was just invited to, I just said yes, and and then I did it, and it changed my life. Like it supported me to realize that I can create anything that I want to. So I became a Reiki master in 90 days. I published a poetry book, which is something I've always wanted to do in 90 days, because I realized like why am I waiting to do all these things? And so once I realized that anything is possible only all the time, which if you know me, you know I say that all the time, that's when I really started my transformational journey and shifted into new possibilities of, wow, like I don't actually need to be in my corporate job that I don't like. I can find something that I love, and it can still provide me with the financial stability that I want, and my family will still be proud of me, even if they question my decisions at first. So
Absolutely.
that's my journey.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, thanks for, kind of like getting us through this process. I'm sure it's a lot more in depth, but like definitely, you mentioned a few things, you actually that being half Asian. And, prior for us getting on live, you were mentioning how like you felt that didn't really quite fit in, like you weren't white enough and yet you weren't Asian enough. And I definitely, I'm almost full, like Chinese. I have some mixtures of Japanese, Vietnamese as well. But like, at the end of the day, I was also born here in America, and I felt the same way. Like was born here in America, raised American, but with, Asian parents. So it was like I wasn't Asian enough though, because being raised here, and not, and not white enough because I'm clearly Asian. So like, how was it growing up for you in that space?
Yeah, so I am multiracial, so I'm half Chinese, quarter Dutch, and quarter, I like to say, mutt. So I always say everyone in my family marries someone outside of the country, which is very cool, I think.
Yeah.
And so something I've always lived by is that I don't belong anywhere, therefore I belong everywhere. And it's a thing where growing up in such a multiracial environment, I never identified with any race. Like, for example, I am half Chinese, and I never thought that I was a person of color until I took a course on race a few weeks ago, which is pretty wild. That was a crazy awakening of, wait a sec, like, yeah, I'm not white. And people at school, I remember I went to a very small private Catholic school in Connecticut. There were 80 people in my grade, and there were 2 other Asians. And they told me that I wasn't Asian enough to be considered Asian. However, I looked around and I was like, okay, well, are there any half Asians then? Maybe I can fit in somewhere else. And I had my cousin who was there. She's also half Chinese, which is cool. But I was like, all right, but where do I belong then? Because the white kids tell me I'm not white, the Asian kids tell me I'm not Asian, so where does that leave me? And then I have my mom who's half Dutch, and my cousins, and everyone's just from somewhere else in the world, which I think is awesome. It's like a melting pot. But I'm definitely in identity crisis, to be honest. It's something that I'm still challenged with, figuring out like who am I? And like, when I check off the box on a form or something, like, what do I check? I always check 2 or more races. But like, what does that even mean? Because aren't we all 2 or more races? I don't even know.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, I think because of these forms and how we've been raised and how things have, like, the processes, the systems, it's like we always have to check a box off. Like, what are you? I don't know. Like, we even have to put ourselves in a box. Therefore, we put other people in boxes. And can we just be who we are? Like, be free, and like, what's it to it? We're human. At the end of the day. But yeah. So. Yeah, I get it. It's definitely a struggle, and we get to navigate through. And so, how do you incorporate, your processes, like with all the things that you're dealing with in your life, with back to like the poetic transformational work that you do? And I'd love to hear your piece later if you'd like to share something with us.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Oh.
That's a great question. So, poetry is something that I used to write a lot when I was younger, and I forgot that I was a poet for so long when I was going through school. Like, I was the person who, well, honestly, when I was 6 years old, I decided that I was going to Harvard. And so I was so confused by everyone in my grade who wasn't working hard. And I was like, well, don't you know you have to work hard now so that you can get good grades now, so that you have a work ethic, so that you can keep getting good grades in middle school. And then in high school, like, I marched into my principal's office and said, I want to be in the advanced learning program when I was 8 years old. And they gave me extra homework to get in there because I had this like expectation that like, yeah, this is where I need to be in order to get into that good school. And so back then I was always a poet. And I totally forgot about it because I put myself into my schoolwork where I was like, oh, well, everything I'm doing is for a good grade. Fun fact, I'm an identical twin. So like, she always got better grades than me, but so I was always very uncomfortable. So I was just working really hard, like nose in the textbook, stereotypical Asian, I would say. Like my mom, she would always joke around saying, oh, like, where's the other 2 points when I get a 98 on a math exam? And I know it was a joke, and I know it was good intentions from her, and she loved making Asian jokes because she has Asian Jewish children, and she's Dutch, and Yeah, but I'm realizing now as I say it out loud, it really affected me and made me think like, yeah, I do need to get like a perfect score. I need to get 100. I need to be in the advanced program. I need to be in calculus in 8th grade kind of story that I was making up from external pressures. But to go back to the poetry, I know I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that because those are good points, though. By the way, I think again a lot of people have those struggles. Like a little joke actually does plant that seed, and all of a sudden now we have to be perfect. It has to be 100, and if it's not 100, or it has to be 102, it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's enough. It's enough. So go
Yeah,
ahead, back to your poetry.
exactly. And so the first time I quit my corporate job was a year and a half in. Um, so I basically, my mom, she had cancer, so I moved back home to support her and take care of her. And then when she got better, I decided, I connected with what I really wanted to do when I graduated school. And I really wanted to travel the world. So I bought a one-way ticket to Australia and I had a journal. And I didn't think I would actually use this journal, but a few people had given me journals because they knew I was about to travel and go on this one-way ticket adventure.
Mm-hmm.
7 days in, I wrote one of the best poems I've ever written, and it was called The Solo Traveler. And it's all about while traveling. And I decided then and there that I would start a blog on the road of only poems, and that this blog would support people in understanding what I was going through whimsical rhymes. And so that's really when it all began. Like that, the solo traveler, it was something where I was on the phone with my friend, and all of a sudden I was like, hold on, I need to tell you something. I just have this idea for a poem. I'm just going to write it down. I wrote it in 5 minutes. And then I sent it to him, and I was like, he just responded. So he's like, wait, you just wrote this in 5 minutes because of an idea that you had while we were talking on the phone? How is that even possible? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I don't even know where it came from. Even when I read my book, I have no idea where these poems came from. And so for me, poetry actually replaces journaling. So if you look at my journals, it's journals and journals of poems. So that is really how poetry has supported me, by allowing me to tell my truth. And it's essentially a journal of everything. Like this book is literally a journal of my year and a half on the road.
Amazing. So, I mean, let's tell me a little bit more. Like, do you, as far as with your coaching, how do you approach coaching? Like, what kind of like what do people typically come to you about?
Yeah. So coaching, I like to say that I'm your account-a-live buddy. So my name is Olivia. A lot of people call me Liv or Livy. So account-a-live buddy. So I support people in holding them accountable for everything that they say they want in their life. So for example, my friend, she was moving to Colorado from Massachusetts, and she just didn't know how to get out of Massachusetts. And she was calling me and she was talking to me about this one day. And so then I told her, I said, well, do you want someone to hold you accountable? And she's like, yeah, that would be great, because I want to do this, but I know that there's so many obstacles in my way. And so I told her, I was like, okay, so every Tuesday, I want you to call me. And I want you to call me and tell me one step that you took to get to Colorado. And so every Tuesday she would call me. And some Tuesdays were great. She's like, oh, I did this. I talked to my manager. I talked to the person in Colorado to try to transfer there. And then some Tuesdays she'd call me. She's like, Olivia, like, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't know what I was thinking. And it's really just stories that I was hearing and illuminating, saying, okay, I hear you. I hear that this is difficult. How can I support you so that you know that you can do this? Because I know that you can do this. You want to know why I know you can do this? Someone else did this. And even if someone else didn't do this, I know that you can. So my coaching is really just about supporting people and breaking through any conversations that they have in their head that are preventing them from doing what they want to do.
Right, absolutely. And then, so with the tarot, is that something separate? Because I remember you mentioned you do like some tarot reading and stuff, and Reiki. Do you integrate, or are they kind of like separate?
Yeah, so I tried to separate them. Mm-hmm. However, I just can't. It's a fully integrated practice, and it's nothing like anything that I've actually experienced by going to a Reiki session. So I have 3 different paths that I'm creating right now. So they're essentially different doses of healing and different time frames. So one of them is 12 weeks, which would involve accountability coaching throughout that 12-week program. And then you could even have a 90-minute session, or like a 250-minute session. However, with the tarot and Reiki, it's all about energy healing and connecting to intuition and a universal life force. Right. So what I like to do is do a tarot reading to support people getting comfortable with talking to their higher self and connecting with their intuition to see what is there that they might not even want to see. And I find that to be very supportive when I have clients who come in who I've never met before. All right, let's start with a chakra tarot reading. Like, what's coming up for you? What's a question that you want some support with? We're going to connect with your higher self and an intuitive life force in order to see what blocks might be there so that I can work on those blocks during the Reiki session. And so that really opens up the client to create a space of trust, so that they are even open for that Reiki to receive that healing. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know what Reiki is energy healing. So it's all about going into the aura and the subconscious field to remove blocks, to create space for something new to occur. And so with my tarot readings, I'll often involve coaching so that the person knows that I'm here to support them, like I'm on their side. So like I'll ask them a lot of questions, coming from a space of curiosity, listening in a way that they may have never experienced before. And then we'll go into the Reiki session, and I'll know which energy blocks are blocked more so that I can clear them, so that it supports them having clarity in whatever they're asking. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I'll usually end with a journal entry if they're open to it, and we'll talk about different ways of support. And if they have anything coming up for them, I'll coach them right then and there and follow up with them after as well. It's something that I definitely try to separate, and I feel like it's a holistic practice, actually, to put it all together, because it's a thing where what was missing for me in Reiki sessions was really connecting with my healer and thinking like, okay, like, yeah, I know I have this energy block, but what's next for me? Right. And so that's where I think the coaching comes in as an integrated healing practice in order to support anyone with understanding like, okay, like, great, I feel great now. I've cleared space. What's next?
Right. So as far as your path, as a transformational coach, Reiki healer, and tarot card reader, how has your parents responded to that path choice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on Father's Day, I had a Father's Day Zoom with my sister and my dad. And I was telling them, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm starting my Reiki practice finally. And this was a month ago. So I'm still in the process of building it, and it's happening very quickly. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, okay, very good. That's great, Olivia. Like his face kind of just went blank. Like, I don't really know what that is. And even my little sister, she's like, okay, like, I don't understand this whole energy healing stuff. Like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, why does she even believe in it? And then I have my mom, who is like, okay, I hear you that you're not happy at your job, but what about health insurance? What about your 401k? What about, your stable income? What if you have no clients 1 month? And I'm like, well, I reached all my financial goals. However, even me, like once I reach a financial goal, I'm like never satisfied. It's never enough. Okay, so this is my financial goal. When I turn 27, this is how much I'll have in my savings. This is how much I'll have in my 401k. And then I can quit my job and I'll totally be fine. All right, turn 27. All right, I have that and I have that. And I still can't quit. Why? Because it's never enough. So my parents, they're very nervous. It's similar to a feeling they had, I think, when I decided to quit my job and buy a one-way ticket to Australia. Like the thought of me not having a stable job, especially now during the pandemic. So I have all this external pressure from them, which is really internal pressure that I'm putting on myself, I'm recognizing, to stay in to please them. And to be perfect, to do what's expected of me, to just have my stable corporate job, even though I tried to make it work for me. I work full-time remotely. I have for 2 years. So I'll work from campsites. But I don't know. I feel like it's time to clear space by letting go.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, yes, you've mentioned having external force, but now that you're talking it through, that it's more of an internal process that's really kind of stopping you. So, what do you think it's going to take for you to really just, trust and go for what it is that you really want in your life to fulfill yourself, and that it can be enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the golden question right there. I mean, at the beginning of this week, I had a huge awareness moment where I realized that my entire life I've been living for other people. So what that means is that I decided I would be a perfectionist and that I would be perfect so that I wouldn't disappoint other people. However, my entire life I've been disappointing myself. And wow, my heart rate is like going really fast right now, even saying that out loud. And it's a thing where when I lifted that veil, or when I had this awareness moment and saw this truth, I couldn't stop crying because I realized how much abuse and manipulation I've invited into my life by choosing everyone else except for myself. And so in that moment, I realized that it's time for me to bet on me. Like, when am I going to bet on myself? When am I going to choose me? When am I going to know that I matter and that I'm worth it? And that if I can pour everything that I have into someone else's dream, why can't I do that for myself and take that leap of faith? And I did get coaching on this because I was a hot mess, I'll tell you that. And I'm really grateful for it because, I mean, I think I cried more than I've cried in the last 2 months in those 2 days. And it felt really good. It felt like whenever I'm that low in life, I just see it as an opportunity and a lesson. And so I was like, okay, this sucks right now. I'm going to feel everything fully, let it all out. And I think there's still some residual things that I get to let out at this point in time. I mean, this was only a few days ago.
So good.
But it's a thing where I was like, all right, there's something waiting for me on the other side. And on the other side, what was waiting for me was the ability to say no. Because saying no to someone else could be saying yes to myself. And if I say yes to them, then that's me saying no to myself. And so this week, it's a thing where I've really been learning how to renegotiate commitments in a way that is a win-win situation for both parties involved. It's been very difficult, illuminating, enlightening, and amazing honestly. Like, I feel like I broke through something. I had this awareness of something that's persisted my entire life that I put on myself. Like, sure, I can blame anyone. I can blame my parents. I can blame, you're like, oh, well, I just want to make my dad proud. But like, where's the power in that? That means that I'm giving up my power to my parents.
Yes. So good, Olivia.
Yeah, it's I'm just looking over at this book on my bookshelf. I Am a Strange Loop. I believe that.
Aren't we all? I mean, that's the thing, you know, whether you're a loop, you're a swirl, you're a triangle, we are all our own unique shape. And we're not here to shape ourselves to other people's desires, intentions, projections, expectations, right? And even our own expectations of ourselves sometimes can be too much. I really want to acknowledge you for, you know, for that share. It was really beautiful to have you be so honest and open about how uncomfortable, but yet beautiful the illumination was for us coming on live. Like we were discussing how many people, when we're faced with discomfort, we want to back out, we want to run away, we want to avoid, we want to ignore. And what we're really doing is we're missing an opportunity, you know, that opportunity for you, like what was revealed to you. What would you say was revealed to you, Olivia?
Yeah, wow, a lot was revealed to me. I think that the biggest thing for me is the fact that I've invited so much manipulation and abuse in my life through my perfectionist tendencies and my want to please everyone else except for myself. Yeah, and it's a conversation about always wanting to look good and be perfect all the time for everyone else. So I've said yes to, I'm someone who says yes to everything and to my own detriment. So even if I want to say no, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'll still do it. And I'm someone who keeps my word and my commitments to the point of I will be literally killing myself to make something happen.
I was literally thinking that what you said, like even if it kills you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an addiction. So another great thing that was revealed to me actually, and this was pointed out by someone who was supporting me, coaching me. He goes, Olivia, you are addicted to praise and you are addicted to people pleasing and not disappointing other people. And guess what addictions do? They kill people.
Wow.
Because they keep going back to it. And I literally was like crying so hard on the other end of the line. He's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, thank you. Like, thank you for framing it like that. And then I had another friend. He said, okay, so you're saying no to these people and they're still coming back and asking you and saying like, oh, well, you did commit to this. And you're like, yeah, and I'm renegotiating my commitments right now. And he goes, Olivia, you want to know why you're upset? And this is why I love coaching, because they're just like, they say it how they see it, and it's their experience, their perspective. I can take it or not. But they go, Olivia, they are not respecting your no. They're not honoring your no. And I'm going to put this very bluntly to you. It's the same as if you were being raped and you were saying no. That's what they're doing to you. Whenever someone doesn't respect your no, that's what's happening.
Wow.
And that's why it hurts you so much to say no, because you never want to be in a situation where you're disappointing someone else and where they don't want to honor your no.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, I think those were my two biggest, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, absolutely.
My French, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Look, I mean, we're here live because it's about being raw, real, and open and honest. Like what comes out, because it's the truth. That's what this is all about. And I, you know, with what you shared with me, the whole perfectionism and people pleasing, like I think it's so prominent, especially in the Asian community, because let's bring it back to your mom's comment of like, what about the 2 extra points? So instead of, you know, it's like, you know, you got a 98, you didn't get the praise, you got the criticism. So now in order to get the praise, you had to go back and get the 2 points. You had to go back and get perfect. And at the end of the day, like there's, I really want to speak into this perfectionism thing because I struggled with perfectionism as well. And I think so many, like I said, so many Asian people, like, we struggle with this perfectionism. And let's just get this straight. There is no such thing as perfect. There is no such thing. It's like saying, like, I know we have this term unicorn, but like really, if I'm like, no, I want to search for a unicorn, I'm literally in search for something that does not exist. And therefore, how do you ever fulfill this desire to be perfect? Because perfect doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that goes back to the whole, it's not enough. Once I reach a goal, it's not enough. I just set my new goal. I don't even sit and celebrate a win. I'm just like, okay, yeah, I made it. All right, what's next? Let's go.
Yeah. Checking off the box. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I want to say with perfectionism as well, and I hear this so much within the Asian community and within my Asian friends, it's a thing where like I'm very good at following rules. Give me a set of rules and I will excel at them. I will follow them to the T. And people will be like, wow, this is amazing. Look at the results she's creating. Awesome. That's great. And I get all this praise that I'm addicted to that's killing me by following rules to someone else's game. And so now with doing transformational work and coaching it and also writing transformational poetry, and I started doing poetry workshops to support people with connecting with their vision through poetry. Poetry is the way that I hear the world and the way that I can speak my truth. So that's why I keep bringing it up, because it has helped me step into my authenticity. But like when now I'm stepping into, okay, like what game am I up to? What game am I playing? What are my rules? Like regardless of everything else, like what are my rules for myself that are in line with myself that support everyone else in the world too? However, they're so in integrity with me that I'll never feel bad if I say no to someone, because I'm not saying no to them. I'm saying I'm committed to the integrity of myself. Like I'm committed to the game that I'm playing, the game that I'm up to my rules and my game. And I can support you with your game. However, I can't make that commitment right now.
I was gonna say, like, no doesn't exactly have to mean a hard no. No could also.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, what kind of advice could you give people who are struggling with, with these type of similar addictions to perfectionism, to people pleasing, to saying yes all the time?
So I do have a tool that my friend recently told me about. She said every morning she wakes up and she embodies her no. She says, I'm going to say no to, and she'll write down in her journal whatever she says no to. And then she'll just embody it, literally be like, no, I'm not doing that. And say it out loud.
I love that.
And it feels really powerful and really good in the body. You're like, no, it's not happening today. And and it's something that, I'll be honest with you, she told me about this a couple weeks ago and I've never done it until right now, and I'm definitely going to wake up and just do that every morning.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah, because, at the end of the day, it's about creating healthy boundaries, and really, even if people don't mean to, like, take from you, if you're not careful of what is happening to your own energy, they will do that. So we have to be so mindful about how we're giving of ourselves. I know that we all mean well when we're giving. Giving is something, again, back to our our cultural beliefs is like, be generous. You want to be generous. You want to give. And it's like to that point though, where it's like we're spreading ourselves thin that like we don't even have any more to give. we're like emptying ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that I came up with this past weekend, talking about my perfectionism and going back to perfectionism within Asian culture, which I think has definitely been a prevalent topic among my Asian friends. I realized that my cup was so dry that I gave everything, everything that I could. And I was so focused on the result that I wanted, and I didn't get it. And that was when I broke down, because I realized, oh, I'm not perfect, but like that's what I was trying to do, and I'm not good enough. And then it spirals into this worthiness conversation. And so right then and there, I realized, one, I always get to fill my cup, whatever that looks like to me. And for me, that's doing yoga, maybe taking a midday nap without telling my managers. Don't tell them.
Tell them not to watch this show.
I am friends with some of them on Facebook. And realizing that I can only give from the overflow. So what that means is like I get to fill my cup up first, and whatever's left over is what I can give to other people. And now that's much easier said than done. So for me, what that looks like is scheduling time on my work calendar, saying like no calls during this hour, or no calls during these 2 hours during the workday, or even after the workday, because I work at a company that's kind of just on the clock all the time. Just saying like no calls, this is my time, this is me time. Or a few weeks ago for the 4th of July, I had a long weekend, and I decided to go into the mountains. I live in Colorado by myself. I stayed at my friend's home because she was actually away that weekend, and I was just by myself with myself for the entire weekend. Turned all my electronics off, just disconnected from the world. Of course, I told my mom I was turning my phone off, so she wasn't worried. But disconnected from the world and focused on me. Like, okay, if there was no technology or other people, like what would I be doing for myself? And what do I do? It's like, what do I do when no one's watching? And what's really for me, and what's for other people?
Right.
So I find that to be extremely supportive, at least for filling the cup. And with perfection, I used to wake up in the morning and I would just write for 5 minutes straight. So set a timer and then just write anything that was coming out, and not even dot my I's or cross my T's, and just like scribble on the page. It was so hard. Oh my goodness, to not like write in my perfect handwriting that I worked so hard on creating when I was 7 years old in elementary school. Just to scribble, but get all my thoughts out for 5 minutes. And if I had nothing to say, I would say, I have nothing to say, but I would keep going, and I would not even pick up my pen, except to flip the page. And that really supported me with my perfectionism. I'm feeling called to like show you what that looks like.
Please, absolutely.
Let me just grab this journal. Oh, look, a red pocket is inside.
Hey, good luck, right? With all our superstitions.
Right? See, it's like very messy. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, no, I can see it. Yeah.
Very messy, scribbly text, just not perfect at all.
Right.
Which was crazy, because let's see if I can find something, or like even just big text everywhere. And I'm someone who, I write very neat. It's like a font almost.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, so this is just writing, or because obviously that's journaling versus the poetry. How has both of them served you?
Yeah. So oftentimes my journals will end up just being poems. So when I was traveling in Australia, for example, that was when I really just started writing a lot more. And I realized that I wouldn't actually want to sit down and write a journal. I thought it was kind of boring. So I decided, like, what what isn't boring that would allow me to actually express myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I started journaling in the first place is because I was traveling by myself. And so I didn't have anyone to talk to, especially in foreign countries where no one speaks English.
Right.
I felt very lonely, so I decided, like, maybe this is time for me to start writing and start reading again. Since I had more time to read, which now I make it, that's also a thing I do for self-care, is reading and making time for that. And so for me, like, me trying to journal, it would just end up coming out in words that were poetry form. And it's really hard to explain. It was like whenever I got into that flow state, it would just end up being 4-line stanzas that rhymed. And I can't even explain it, really. It's pretty incredible to think about.
Yeah.
And I can't really try to do it either.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason why I ask is because I feel like, people have come to me and they're like, I think it's because they're stuck. There's so many things that people hold on to, their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, and they're not processing it, and they don't know how to process it. So it's just stuck, And again, I might have mentioned this before in other episodes, but like, it's like being emotionally constipated, and it just can't come out. And so I offer them to start journaling, and someone who, like you, who journals and is a poet, what's available for them. It's like sometimes, when they see what's possible here through you and what it's offered you and the healing and the, inspiration, or even something that opens up, like, I think it's just important for us to shed light on that.
Yeah, definitely. So, now that I'm thinking about it, because ironically, I actually just posted on Facebook a whole journal entry that I wrote 3 years ago. And I'm realizing now that it actually was not a poem at all. It was just one line of like wise thoughts that I thought. So it was a thing where I think sometimes I felt very intimidated by journaling at first, because I thought I had to be writing like long essays and paragraphs, which did not resonate with me at all, and it seems like a lot of work. So what I started with is typing on my phone in my notes. I actually started that practice in 2014 when I was studying abroad in England. I was with all my flatmates, and I was always on my phone, like, just like, wow, look at that. I'm so amazed. I've never seen anything like that before. And I'd write something like, the man is sitting alone across the street, or something. And they're like, Olivia, get off your phone. And I'm like, oh, I'm just typing a note. And I don't know why I would write that, but then looking at my journal, I remember that exact moment.
Interesting.
And I got my first journal that year as a gift from one of my flatmates, and I was like, I don't journal. And she goes, Olivia, yes you do. Look at your phone. And so I transcribed everything in my notes on my phone into that journal.
Wow.
And oftentimes my journal entries might be one line, they might be a paragraph, or they might be a poem. And so really what it's opened up for me is like understanding my own wisdom. So I have things written down like from 3 years ago, mind you, that I totally forgot about. It's like, let other people have their own experience. Your experience is yours. Their experience is theirs. They're never going to understand what my experience is, because they're not me. So allow them to have their own experience.
Yes.
And it's like something that's so wise. Like, how could I have forgotten that for 3 years? And so I feel like my journal is really a dialogue with myself.
Absolutely.
And a dialogue with like what really wants to come out and what wants to be heard and what wants to be said. Like, so for me, reading The Man Was Sitting Across the Street Alone, that's me connecting to what it felt like to feel alone and feel like I was alone. So I was just seeing outside of my own, like in my physical world, external world, I was seeing everything that was going on internally with me. So that's what journaling has supported me with.
It's amazing. And for those who feel like I'm not a poet, what would you say a poem is?
Yeah, a poem is an expression. It's a truth that, at least for me, I can only speak from my own experience. For me, a poem is an expression of my internal truth and my subconscious that I didn't even know was there necessarily until it was written down. Like, as I said earlier, like this book, I read it, and every time I read it, I'm just in awe. I'm like, I didn't write that. I don't know how that even happened. How did that even get on the page from my hand? How is that possible? So for me, poetry is really like an expression of what wants to come out that I might not even be aware of.
Absolutely. And, poetry is really deep. It really is. As simple as it is, like you said, the man is sitting across the street or alone, right? And it's like, if we can visualize the man sitting, and maybe even if you like went as far as like to describe how he was sitting, then we feel that. We can connect to that, like you said, that emotion, the feeling of feeling alone, or just the fact that you said he's alone across the street, and you get this visual of like a distance and being alone. That's for me, in my experience of when you said that, as I get that resonating feeling of like, wow, yeah, could you share a piece with us? I mean, I don't know. I mean, put you on the spot. I did not prepare you for that, but feel free to like rummage through if there's a piece that speaks to you that you want to share with us. Please feel free.
Yes, a piece just came to mind. It's actually on my friend's website. I wrote it during quarantine, so I wrote this in April, and it's something that I really want to share. And you'll notice that if you buy my book or
and we'll get you a shout out. Don't worry, I got you, girl.
You'll notice that a lot of my poems have questions in them. So really, my intention with my poetry, and even with it's like I want it to inspire you, and I want you to really sit in these questions and think for yourself. All right, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
It's called Sincerely Quarantines. Dear manifested minds, our time has arrived. We have reached a tipping point as Earth is revived. Humanity has never felt so alive. Earthlings reconnect as intergalactic relations thrive. We are experiencing a global timeout. Our demons are emerging so we can let them all out. Now is the time to scream and shout. Do not hold back. This is what cleansing is about. Do you remember who you are? Where does your commitment lie? How are you choosing to spend this time? What are you creating as the new Earth arrives? The present moment is beautiful. Humans awaken as the collective conscience leaves the cubicle. We are redefining what is usual, and our habits are quickly becoming mutable. Welcome to a state of bliss, where love and abundance persist, fear and scarcity cannot exist. Very truly yours, Quarantines.
That was so beautiful. How relevant too is what's going on. I'd love to definitely take a copy of that and share that in the group and in our website, all that good. Very beautiful. So, we're about to wrap up. I want to give you that moment as well to share, if your social media handles or your website, anything, anywhere we could find you in your work.
Yeah. So my Instagram is transient perennial. So I'm in an everlasting state of always transforming, transient perennial.
I love it.
And I have my book, An Intergalactic Gypsy's Guide to the Universe. And you can find it on Amazon, or really just typing in Google. It's the only one of its kind. You could even just type Olivia Choi in Amazon and I'll show up the first book. My inspiration for this book, you'll see it's very small. It's supposed to fit in your pocket. And I was going to create pictures inside of it. I wanted to be like Shel Silverstein. However, I left blank space on purpose so that readers would be inspired by the poem so they could draw or write whatever was coming up for them. And some people say that they use this as like a actual guide. So they'll flip to a page every morning and start their day reading one of these poems. So I just flipped to a random page, and I feel like this is actually very on point. So
That's awesome.
If you don't mind, I'll read another short little stanza.
Please do. And then we got a question too from one of our live audience members. So go ahead and share, and then I'll ask the question.
Awesome. I live in possibility, coming from abundance, stepping into responsibility, recognizing everything is wondrous. Do you live in possibility? Do you come from abundance? Do you step into accountability? Do you recognize what's wondrous?
Ooh, love that. What a great way to invoke thought in people, to invite them to see what is possible. That's the thing. Like there's this quote I really love. It says, what is it? What the world needs is vision. Because there are no hopeless situations, just people who see hopelessly. So like the perspective, like if you don't see what's possible, like you just, you get stuck, right? And sometimes you have to ask these questions to get us past, to get us thinking, like, to see what is possible, to see the vision. So, okay, let me go ahead and jump to this question. So Sunny wants to know if you edit your poems as your journal, or do you keep them as they flow out?
Can you repeat that?
Like, do you edit your poems on your journal, or do you keep them as they come out?
Yeah, so my perfectionist is still very much alive. So so I write them as they are, but you'll see in my journals oftentimes I'll have 5 of the same poem with 1 word change, or like crossing out things. So I definitely edit as I go. That's a great question, and right now, like, since that question came up, I actually want to give myself a challenge to not do that, to just let it flow and see what comes out without any editing whatsoever, and keep them as they are.
Yeah. So, no, that's true. Absolutely. Like, because like, being real in that moment as it comes versus like, oh, like, let me change the way I said that. It's kind of like when we're having a conversation, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say instead of being like, oh, wait, hold on. Let me start over and say, you know what I mean? Right. It's like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Do you have any like, last tips, like words of advice or anything that you want to speak into, as the poet, tarot card, energy healing, anything that speaks to you in this moment that people, can resonate with?
Yeah. So all I want to say is that my vision for the world is a connected world radiating love, kindness, smiles, and laughter. So what that means to me is connecting with every single person that you meet. And that's really what I want to leave you with, is a call to action. Like, my call to action to you is to continue connecting. I know that there is social distancing in place, so sometimes people think that connecting only means physically. However, I feel so connected right now, even virtually, and I feel like I'm interconnected on this metaphysical realm automatically. So I just want to leave you with, you're not alone, and there's power in sharing vulnerably, and I want to hear your story. And I want you to know that you matter and that I care. And please reach out if you want to chat. I love connecting.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And it really resonates with, the whole like energy of this show too. We want people to really speak up and show up and share, like you said, vulnerably, that you don't have to be perfect on here. I'm definitely not perfect. None of us are perfect, but that's what makes us human, and that's what makes us beautiful. And that's what also creates connection. Speaking of connection, what you just said, right? So yeah, again, Olivia, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your beautiful work, your journey with us. Definitely looking forward to hearing more of you throughout your journey as you navigate through and exit potentially your corporate job and really stepping into the possibility of you being a healer, transformational coach, and published poet at that. So we'll be sure to send the links, your social media handles, and all that good stuff so people can reach out to you, connect, and just keep growing this community. And another special thanks before we go to Gary, as always, for being such an amazing support to us in this, project that we're so just passionately working towards. We cannot have this without him. So Gary, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to you all, to connecting with you all moving forward. Thank you.